Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. I'm your host, Rob Cramer, alongside, as always, my co-host, Daniel Bobo Kurlan. And Dan, buddy, how you doing today?
A little okay, except for that loss. All right, we got Cookie. Looks like he's injured yet. Well, looks like not so bad. Maybe missed one start. Hopefully at the worst, because I'm guessing from what I've seen in the past with that kind of injury. But I actually heard there may have been a little situation with the construction of the city field, similar to what happened when Yankee Stadium was under construction. Supposedly, like some Red Sox fan had buried a Red Sox jersey underneath where supposedly the Yankee walker room was going to be. And supposedly a Phillies fan did the same thing with City Field under construction, I heard somewhere. And I have to admit, Steve Cohen, if you want to dig, I gladly implore you to maybe get someone with a jackhammer to maybe dig it out. And I can tell you, I would gladly volunteer myself. I don't know how to use a jackhammer, but I probably figure out how to. And I dig that thing out. And if you allowed it, I would even go as far as leaving that jersey that was buried there all those years in one of the porta potties in the parking lot. Maybe use the porta potties, then maybe burn that porta potty and let it burn ash, and maybe I'll throw you some maybe throw in a replacement for that porta john in that parking lot.
All right. Wow. Well, that was quite the introduction, my friend.
On the ballpark.
Wait, what was that? Say that one more time.
All that just to perform an exorcism on the ballpark because it's already players getting hurt. It seems to happen.
Yeah. You know, you're probably right about that. This ballpark is probably in need of a exorcism, and you know, as you said in your whole opening thing there, man. Hey, I think that would be a great stunt for the Best Seat in the House podcast. Steve Cohen, if he somehow hears this or somebody sends him this, just know that you could have the world famous Daniel Bobo Kurlan come down to Citi Field with a jackhammer and get that crappy Phillies jersey out from wherever in the foundation of Citi Field that it was hidden during the construction of the stadium. What about 13, 14 years ago? It's crazy that it's been that long since they've been in Citi Field, right?
Yeah, it just feels like yesterday I was at the very first game in that stadium.
It's true.
And I saw the building. I still remember all those years. I have pictures on file that I took at times when I was at Shea Stadium when that ballpark was under construction. I even personally got to visit that construction site.
That is very, very cool. That was so cool that Citi Field, going up in the background. Obviously, I didn't want to lose Shea, and I'm sure you didn't either. But
I didn't want to. I have so many memories.
Yeah, I mean, it still hurts. I actually even texted you off air earlier today and told you that they should knock it down and rebuild Shea Stadium. So you know how I feel about it.
I even sometimes like to sit on my seat of Shea Stadium that I have. It just, I feel like I can just remember all those memories of what it was like at that stadium.
Yeah, definitely a lot of fun times down at Old Shea. But hey, now that we have officially kicked off episode 16 of the Best Seat in the House podcast, talking a little Mets. As always, we got a lot of fun stuff to touch on today. It's going to be very baseball heavy, obviously, as the Rangers season ended. But very, very cool sight last night, Dan. How did you feel about seeing Igor Shesterkin of the New York Rangers winning his first ever Vezina trophy for the best goaltender in the league?
Well, I have to say that was a no doubter this year. Especially, I felt with a lot of the games the way Igor carried us. I mean, congratulations, and hopefully this is the first of many great things for Igor. And hopefully he'll be the third generation of goalies in a row, 2 generations in a row of retired number goalies with getting their numbers retired. And we had Richter, and it felt like we went right into that to another great goalie who had a great career, and Hank, who will eventually, of course, I'm sure pretty much, I think next year, probably his first year of eligibility, is going to be enshrined in Toronto, the whole thing.
Yeah, no doubt about
And
that.
I feel we're going to see we have a third great goalie in a row.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's tough to argue that, because when you look at the resume of the last three major longtime starting goalies for the Rangers, Mike Richter is one of, if not the greatest American goaltenders of all time. 300 wins, number retired at the Garden, Stanley Cup championship. He won that incredible World Cup of hockey. Dude, do you remember that back in 96 they had the World Cup of hockey? Dan?
I remember back in the day. You're there. I think you're freezing. Oh no, I think I can see you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, you're kind of freezing up pretty good on me too, buddy.
That's probably some lag, but yeah, now I can hear you. But yeah, I remember watching that one on TV back in the day,
Yeah, that
and
that was awesome too.
I missed it back in the day when ESPN had Gary Thorne in the booth also.
Gary Thorne was great. I used to love when he did the Mets games also on Channel 11 with Tom Seaver.
I remember that, and of course we also know about his pairing with Bob Murphy for a while in the radio booth.
Yeah, you're right.
I wish ESPN would have brought back Gary Thorne when it got the rights to the NHL playoff.
Yeah, that would have been great. I was very happy they brought the music back. They got like that old school ESPN hockey music, but yeah, unfortunately, no Gary Thorne. But it is pretty cool seeing it. The Stanley Cup final back on ABC. Have you watched any of this Stanley Cup final? I know I'm still feeling heartbroken, so it's tough to watch it, but I have been able to catch a little bit of it, and it's been pretty entertaining so far.
I was seeing part of one of the game too because I was at a bar and I was like where I was sitting by one of the TVs close to was tuned to the Met game, but there was one of the TVs by me was tuned to the Cup Finals, so that was enjoying it so far.
Yeah, very true, man. Very true. And just to close out before we really get started up here, we'll start off as usual with the Mets, and we'll touch on the Yankees in a bit too. The Yankees who are just killing it, shockingly losing to Tampa Bay the other day, and behind Nestor Cortez. But when you also look at the what's going on now with the NBA championship, where me and you just last week, our prediction was Golden State was going to win that series. Golden State won that series. It was a lot like the Rangers and Lightning series, where it was very competitive early on, but Golden State just really took over late in that series, and their championship pedigree really showed. What are your thoughts about that, Dan? Just business as usual? You expected it to happen?
Yeah, I kind of expected that. I think this might be what the current generation is going to remember as like a big dynasty. Like you got people my age who remember the Bulls, that dynasty, the Bulls. As disappointment as it caused for me as a Knicks fan all those years with the Bulls.
Yeah, very true. The only year the Knicks got to the finals, well, aside from '99, I guess I could say both years in '94 and '99 that the Knicks got to the finals was because Michael Jordan wasn't on the Bulls either of those years. So yeah, you're right. And unfortunately, they lost to the Rockets in '94, and then they lost to the Spurs in '99. So unfortunately, we had to go through that as Knicks fans. But it was nice to see them get there twice.
I still remember that '94 finals, being upset they had to interrupt that game 5 because of that white Bronco chase. I remember like 12 years old. I think when that white Bronco chase was happening, I wasn't watching it. I just remember turning on the radio back then, and it's on the fan. So I was listening to the radio feed of the fans of white Bronco chase.
Wow, that's pretty cool, actually. With me, I was 7 years old, so I don't even remember that at all. I remember the Rangers run in '94, but I wasn't as I knew that the Knicks were on a run too, but I wasn't as into the Knicks in '94 as I was in '99 when I got a little bit older.
I also remember that day. Also, I kind of sometimes forget that the white Bronco chase also happened that day because that day the parade happened. The Rangers won the Stanley Cup. I remember being at that parade back then.
Oh, that's awesome too that you were at that parade. You've been to a lot of those parades, man. You've been to a couple of Giants parades. You've been to Rangers parade. It's about time we add a Mets parade to that list.
Yep, exactly. Hopefully, it'll add what will be a 4th World Series I've attended because, as we all know, 4-year-old me, I was at game. My mom took me to Game 6. I also got to be at the 2000 World Series Game 3, and I got to be at the 2015 World Series Game 3.
Wow, that's awesome, man. Yeah, and that's pretty damn cool. I mean, you've been yeah, the 2000 World Series too. That's pretty awesome that you were there with the Mets and the Yankees, and the fact that the Mets won that game too. That
Yep.
definitely.
Remember what that was like, and I don't know why. I remember when I was watching. I don't know. When I was a kid, sometime in the '90s, did that the Mets were going to be in the World Series in 2000. In addition to hoping a lot of those things were going to be reality, that many of those things got accurate. But they did. Aside, I think one of the things they did get right, and it was mostly just a cross promotion that because Pepsi did this, they did release Pepsi in those weird at home when he sold those. I actually won it.
Wow, very cool, man. And as we're talking about that, we're talking about the Mets now and everything. Let's just get to what we've seen the Mets do since we last spoke, really. And the Mets, they had the homestand last week. They went 5-2. They ended up taking 3 out of 4 from the Marlins to end that series. That series had to make you feel pretty good going into Houston because it wouldn't have, after losing to Sandy Alcantara on Sunday, where the Mets ended up losing that game 6-2. It wouldn't have surprised me to see them lose that game on Monday, but it was just great to see them score early and score often and, take advantage of Marlins' mental and physical errors and win that game 6-0 for their tied with the Yankees league leading 11th shutout of the year. I mean, coming out of that series and going into Houston, you had to be feeling real confident, right, Dan?
Yeah, I felt real confident. Fortunately, I had mixed. I wasn't sure how the first game of that series was going to go because I wasn't sure. I felt like that was going to be a bullpen game. Game 2, I probably would have felt better going into, but if not for the fact that even going into the game, it seemed like I guess Carrasco may have been injured. So I felt like that kind of maybe played a factor into how Carrasco was
Yeah, unfortunately with Carrasco, so we come out of that Marlins series, we play the 2 games in Houston. The Mets dropped both of them. The first time, I know it's only a 2-game sweep, but it's the first time the Mets have been swept all year. Only the third time they've actually lost a series. Well, no, actually the fourth time they've lost a series to San Diego, Seattle, and what was the other team? It was San Diego, Seattle, and San Francisco. Those are the 3 teams that they had lost a series to this year. And now they have also lost a series to the Houston Astros, getting swept 2-0 in Houston. They got blown out yesterday 8-2, where Trevor Williams, didn't really have much. He's much better and has even said he's more comfortable in a long relief role. But unfortunately, it looks like he might have to stick around the rotation for a little bit longer, because the Mets would end up losing 5-3 today on Wednesday, the 22nd. I know for everybody else, you'll be seeing this. It'll be yesterday's game. But, the game on Wednesday, Carlos Carrasco just didn't have it, had that injury. And what were you going to say, Dan?
There's still no game on Thursday, so technically this is going into the next game.
True. I can't argue with that logic. But, so coming out of this game with the 2-game sweep and the Carrasco injury, Dan, how you feeling now about this rotation and the struggle this season to keep these guys together and keep them healthy?
Well, I feel now this one we got to somehow hold up, hopefully, till it looks like Scherzer is going to pitch one more rehab start. Hopefully that one goes well and he's back. But Steve Cohen really might need to really make a consideration into getting some pitching going into.
Now, where did you hear that Max Scherzer is going to need one more start?
I was hearing somewhere during a game they were saying that it's most likely that he's going to pitch one more rehab start.
Really?
It's been 50. They're saying it's 50-50. He's going to do one more rehab start, or possibly pitching on Sunday. But I feel like from what I was hearing them mention during a game, it's probably going to be more in the direction of him going one more rehab start.
Now I totally that would not shock me at all. The Mets really don't, they want to play it cautious with Scherzer, especially the fact that they're 20 games over 500. There's no reason to panic and rush him back. But boy, with Carrasco going down right now the way he did, and hopefully, like you said earlier, it's only for 1 or 2 starts. I mean, Gary Cohen said during the game that it was a bout of back tightness that he had, that, kind of, I guess you could tell his pitches all looked flat. And I guess that's because his back was giving him problems and he couldn't, get as much on it as he normally would. But if he misses a start or two, getting Scherzer back as quickly as possible is really, really, I mean, even if, see, the thing is, though, he went out and threw 65 pitches yesterday. So I think it's very, very likely that he's going to pitch on Sunday against the Marlins in Miami. I mean, the Marlins have a decent lineup, but it's nothing great. And he's already thrown 65 pitches at the minor league level. So he's good to go to at least 75, 80 in his second go around. Now that's what they're going to be trying to stretch him out till. So I think there's definitely a possibility we can see Max Scherzer on Sunday. If you were going to put your guess in, Dan, what's your money on Scherzer on Sunday or one more rehab start?
50-50. And if you're thinking of attending, if any Met fans that live in South Florida or live in Florida that think going to one of the games in Miami, or any Met fans in your area thinking of traveling to Miami to attend one of the 3 games, you might want to buy tickets to the Sunday game. If you're going to attend only one of the 3 games, I would recommend the Sunday game.
Very true.
personally, if I was going there, I would probably buy a ticket to the Sunday game. And also, all you Met fans watching at home, you might get your money's worth if you already bought a subscription to Peacock to make sure you can watch the game.
That's a good point too.
It is airing on Peacock. I don't know. I haven't really watched any of the Peacock broadcasts yet, but I remember hearing that they're going to have like one announcer from each two teams, and that they have one guy that's the national announcer. I don't know how that works. Maybe I'm wrong. I gotta ask maybe one of my Yankee fan peeps what the Peacock broadcast who watched it when they were on a Peacock broadcast, what that was like. But if that's the case, then maybe it might not be all too much painstaking like that, similar to what happened with the second Apple TV broadcast, where that one was kind of more of a certain thing that they get to bring in Wayne Randazzo to fill in for one of the announcers that wasn't able to be in the booth that night. That probably, I don't know, probably weather or something. So luckily we had Wayne Randazzo fill in, so it wasn't as bothering as that first Apple TV broadcast that felt like I was watching an episode of The View more than a baseball game.
Yeah, that first one on Apple TV was really, really bad. Like bad at a level that I've never seen for a baseball game on live television before. And it was nice to have Wayne, because Wayne Randazzo is a pro and he's a great broadcaster. It was nice to have him on Apple TV, but it was still a crappy broadcast. And it just like you said, I think Peacock is going to be a lot better.
Yeah, I just hope there's not as much lag on Peacock as there was during the Apple TV broadcast, because I felt there was a couple of lag on and off.
I agree. That's why I had it on the radio mostly too, because I felt it was like closer to being live than it was watching Apple TV.
Yeah, exactly. And I heard the delay was like way off from someone who attended the first Apple TV broadcast. I think someone who was at DC told me that they timed it how off the live feed was. The delay.
That doesn't surprise me, because it from what I've heard too, especially in that first one for Scherzer's first start in Washington against the Nationals. I remember people talking about, especially on Twitter, how far off the lag was. So Major League Baseball has to figure that out. I mean, man, if you're gonna sell your rights to these streaming companies, at least make it up to date.
I think I know why the delay is, and I'll tell you a good example of a delay I noticed. The old version of the SNY app, when the SNY broadcasts were accessed on your phone via the SNY app, I noticed moment the delay, because I noticed that again. I remember he that hit a walk-off home run, and right after that walk-off home run happened, as he walked into the dugout, I took a peek at the phone and I saw that same moment happen. So it felt like behind.
Yeah, the SNY app is a little bit behind, but that makes more sense on like the SNY stream, being a little bit behind the actual SNY TV feed, as opposed to on Apple TV. And who knows about Peacock? I haven't seen much of their broadcast yet, but I'm assuming there's going to be at least a slight lag.
And I think there's also why there's maybe a delay with broadcast of the games versus what it was live, because as I said, that's why thing I looked at when I was at the game when I noticed that. But here's what I think why. Remember that whole controversy with Astros? They were, one of the things they were using was the TV feed for that controversy. So maybe they were trying to increase the delay to try to discourage what was happening.
That's a good point, actually. That's a very good point. They're trying to make it less real time, so you can't use it to your advantage, especially when you're the home team and you have your home feed. So that's definitely a good point. To keep on with the Mets here, Dan. So obviously we have these crappy two games in in Houston. We lose Carlos Carrasco, not to mention both games. But something we also missed is Jeff McNeil having this little hamstring issue. So he played neither game against Houston. That's definitely concerning. Obviously, we talked about the Carrasco injury, and now we had that little scare with Eduardo Escobar at the end of the game where he was grabbing his quad after a diving attempt that he didn't make in foul territory. And you just kind of say to yourself, man, these injuries are piling up right now. I mean, of course, they got a couple of guys coming back, like James McCann, Trevor May, all trying to work their way back. Scherzer and deGrom, obviously, but man, they got to find a way to keep these guys healthy because these guys are dropping like flies.
Yeah, they are. The Escobar one seems like it wasn't that bad. It was mostly a scare.
Mm-hmm.
The one, I think they weren't quite ready yet. And I hear McNeil could be ready by this weekend.
Yeah, word is that he's either going to start on Friday or Saturday, and that Buck wasn't willing to commit to one or the other yet. But I will say this, that it was a little bit concerning to me that, and I know they have the day off tomorrow, so take that into consideration. Maybe Buck just said, "There's no way I'm playing him today, no matter what," and we're gonna make sure he gets today off along with yesterday, and then the actual team off day tomorrow. So you're gonna get him 3 full days off before he jumps back into things on a Friday potentially in Miami. But the thing that worries me is that if that's not the case and he wasn't healthy enough to pinch hit today, I don't know what makes us think that he's going to be ready on Friday. What do you think, Dan? Do you think it's smart to risk this with a guy that's hitting damn near 330, or do you think it's better to err on the side of caution and maybe just backdate Jeff McNeil to the day he hurt himself and put him on the DL, bite the bullet for a week? He can put him on the 10-day. It doesn't have to, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be, the 15 or 20-day DL anymore where he's gone half a month or a full month. You could 10-day DL him and just let him get healthy that way and not rush him back. Or do you think that, the Mets need him, and if he thinks he's healthy enough, take the risk? Which side are you on that?
I think going into Friday is going to determine everything, whether they want to be on the side of caution or not.
Well, that's true, but if you were making the call right now, which side do you think that you'd fall on?
Probably a week. I think probably it might have to be, unfortunately, the IL. Hopefully, it's not as long as we hope.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you. What's that?
Yeah. Hopefully, it's not as long as we think it would be. That he would have to be in the IL.
Yeah, man. I mean, and look, even if you think he could be back this weekend, we saw this. What was it, last year or the year before, where Jeff McNeil, when the Mets were in Tampa Bay, had that little scare the day before where everybody was like, "Oh, that hamstring's popping up again. Let's keep an eye on that." And then what happened? He went out and he was running a hit out to first base, pulled up lame, and you missed McNeil for a month after that. Look,
yeah.
I
same after that.
yeah,
I think
right.
For that injury last year, he was starting to. I think he got off to a little slow start, but was finally starting to come around. And I think when we made the mistake of rushing him back too soon, it backfired on us. And
I totally agree.
May have cost us a couple more wins that may have let been the difference between what happened.
I think you're totally right too, because when you think about it, last year, the Mets' biggest problem was hitting with runners in scoring position and scoring runs in general. And you know what? Jeff McNeil hit 250 and only drove in 35 runs all year. Um, he was one of the biggest contributors to their struggle with offense last year. And I just think that, if you stick, even if everything else stayed exactly the same last year, if you stick a 330 hitting McNeil on there, who, by the way, right now he's hitting 327 with 4 home runs and 33 RBIs. He's 2 RBIs away from what he did all of last year already. So Jeff McNeil is back in all-star form. And that can only be a good thing for the Mets. I think if he played up to this level last year, um, you know, things might have really been different for a lot of reasons because and that also factored into the Mets missing him for a month when he was injured. So if McNeil was his normal McNeil self and the Mets, didn't rush him back and he ended up playing, 150 games or whatever, then maybe that 5-game lead that the Mets had in June and early July, maybe that lead balloons to 10 like it did a couple of weeks ago. Maybe that goes to 8 or 9. And then at the end of July, when the Braves realized, hey, we're still in this thing because the Mets allowed us to be in this thing, maybe things go out differently. Maybe instead of being buyers at the deadline, the Braves are sellers. They sell off a couple of big pieces and the Mets cruise to a division championship. That's a very feasible thing that definitely could have happened if a couple of things just broke the Mets' way, including just getting a regular old Jeff McNeil season. What do you think about that, Dan?
That also happened, and I feel that the deGrom injury really hurt.
Oh, no doubt about that, man.
Felt like that the deGrom injury hurt us. I think we even if we did fall out of first place, I think we would have gained first place back shortly after had deGrom had pitched in the
Yeah, and I think if the Mets were still in it at this point and it was still close race, I think deGrom would have pitched in September. I think the more that the Mets looked at it last year, I think they just kind of said to themselves, you know what, guys, this isn't looking like our year, and there's no reason to rush our ace, who, they used to call Seaver the franchise. Well, right now, Jacob deGrom and his arm over there can be considered in some ways, especially over the last few years, the franchise. And when he comes back, that's going to be such a boost to them, and it would have done the same thing last year. This team, and how could you not, just loves playing behind Jacob deGrom. He's one of the best pitchers in baseball.
Exactly. I'm hopeful he's gonna come back. I tried buying as many tickets as I could. Tried to buy tickets for 2 games in the second half. Hopes potentially one of those games seeing deGrom pitch.
Yeah, I could even see them, because so far Jacob deGrom in his rehabilitation process has thrown a couple of different bullpen sessions, including the most recent one where they call it an up-down session, meaning that they treat it like a game, where it's like a simulated game where he throws an inning, then he goes sits on the bench while his fake offense hits for an inning. Then after they're done, after a couple of minutes, he goes back out there and so on and so forth. So that's such a big step in the right direction. That means we're going to be seeing deGrom, on a mound, a minor league rehab mound, at some point in the next week or two. I would say by July 1st, Jacob deGrom is making a rehab start. Probably before that, he might even be making one by next Monday or Tuesday, depending on,
deGrom is pitching. I don't know where he's going to be rehabbing, but if one of those rehab starts, I'll probably be.
I'm telling you right now, man. I think you're right on about that, because I think his first rehab start is going to be in Brooklyn. I could definitely see that, and you're right about that. That will be a hot ticket to get when Jacob deGrom, who at that point it'll have been about a year since he threw a pitch on a, you know, on a mound in a big league setting almost. And it's not big league, but you know what I mean.
Not only would I probably be in the stands, you probably have some of those great photos at Big A.
That's true. What a cool opportunity that would be for our buddy Big A, as he would be taking pictures of the great Jacob deGrom, 2-time Cy Young Award winner. So you're definitely right about that. All right, and we got a little bit, just a couple of little more things to throw in about the Mets. But actually, before we get into all that, there's some breaking news, right? My partner Daniel Bobo Kurlan has some breaking news. What's the news, Dan?
Well, I just noticed on my computer that Tony Saragusa has passed away.
Wow, Tony Saragusa, the old offensive lineman for the Baltimore Ravens, and as you said, a sideline reporter for Fox 5 all those years. Yeah, very sad news. Did it say how old he was?
He was 55.
Wow. Well, very young. Rest in peace, Tony Saragusa. Great guy.
Yep, he always gave me vibes of being a likable person.
Yeah, I agree. And like the life of a party type guy, you know?
Yep, exactly. He seems like somebody who would have been a fun guest on this show too.
You're right. You're right. In fact, I'm surprised that we never saw him. Well, come to think of it, maybe we did at some point. I wonder if he was ever on the old Dopey and Anthony show.
I wasn't there that day, but I remember an episode of Opie and Anthony. He was a guest on the show.
Oh, okay. Well, as the resident Opie and Anthony historian, I'm going to take your word for it because I guarantee you're right about that. I don't remember it, but it wouldn't surprise me. He seems like one of those guys that would have relished the opportunity to go on a show like O&A, right?
Exactly. I feel like he would have been. So
Yeah, well, unfortunately, rest in peace, Tony Saragusa. So we'll have to take a somber moment here and move on. But we took a little break for a second, and we saw in the interim not only that unfortunately Tony Saragusa passed away, but that there's been some news about Max Scherzer in the last few minutes. I saw Tim Healy write on Twitter that the Mets aren't planning on rushing Scherzer back just because they've had a couple of injuries, most notably today with Carrasco, but he also did not close the door on Sunday. He said that Max knows they want him to pitch, but he also knows that they want him to pitch for the rest of the season. So, luckily, I think it's a good thing we got a guy like Buck Showalter making the call here, and it's not a Mickey Callaway, and it's not, one of these guys that are trying to prove himself. This is a guy that's been down the road many times before, and I think the only thing that Buck is thinking about right now is October.
yep, exactly. I feel like Buck he's on a mission to finally get that ring. This guy has done. I feel like he's accomplished everything you could accomplish as a manager, but that ring. And he's on a mission to get this team to help steer this team in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right about that, Dan. And when you think about it, he's actually just a couple of wins away. What the Mets have 45 wins right now. So I believe he's only four wins away when he wins his 49th game this year. It'll be his 1600th career managerial win. I mean, geez, only a select few guys have gotten that to that point in their career. And just like you mentioned, I mean, all the places that Buck has gone, these teams come out better because he was there. I mean, look at what were you going to say?
Might have maybe led to the beginning of that Yankee dynasty. Also, Arizona was pretty good, but unfortunately, the year he won the World Series, they won the World Series 1 year after he left. He made Baltimore during that time. He managed Baltimore contending team. And I think the same thing happened when he managed in Texas.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was gone after the 2006 season in Texas, but I think just like you, Buck Showalter laid the groundwork for that Texas Rangers team. You know, him cultivating guys like like a young Mark Teixeira and Hank Blaylock and Michael Young, and turning those guys into big time players. You know, they even had Alfonso Soriano for a year after they traded A-Rod to the Yankees, and Buck really started getting more talent there, and that's what he did for a lot of things. You got to remember too. Look where the Yankees were when they hired Showalter in '92 for his first season. In 1991, the Yankees were coming off the Stump Merrill years, and if you're a Yankee fan and you remember who Stump Merrill is, you're probably not happy that you do remember that, because that was just a terrible, terrible time for the Yankees.
If you're a Yankees fan that was actually attending games during that time, then you're definitely not a bandwagoner.
Yeah, then you definitely earned my respect, and you definitely earned the ability to enjoy every single second of that Yankees, 96, 98, 99, 2000, and then the one for good luck in 2009. But if you remember those days, I mean, Buck Showalter took over a Yankee team that lost over 90 games, and the Yankees in their history, ever since they've gone from, they changed their name from the New York Highlanders to the New York Yankees in the late teens, early 20s last century. This has not been a team that has ever been capable of losing 90 plus games, even when they were having their down years in the 60s and the early 70s and everything. They still were kicking around 500, maybe in the high 80s in losses, never plus 90. And for a couple of years there, 90 and 91, the Yankees were in that territory. And Buck, by 1993, turned them into a very competitive team. And boy, 94, that strike year, it would have been really fun to see Buck Showalter have a chance to take that Yankee team to the playoffs, right?
Yeah, I personally think, based on what I remember from the '94 season, there probably would have been a World Series between the Expos and the Yankees that year.
Yeah, or I mean, even if that wasn't the World Series that year, that's what everybody would have been expecting. I mean, those would have been the two heavyweights. The Yankees were, I remember that they were 70 and 43 when that season ended. I forget what the Expos were. I think the Expos might have been a couple of games better. But the two best teams in the league were the Yankees and the Expos, and it looked like they were on a collision course for the World Series that year, but not meant to be.
I know some people in Montreal that say they still say that the Expos would have won the World Series that year.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that 1994 was the year that killed baseball in Montreal. It was never the same again after that, right?
Yep, exactly. I hear that from a lot of people I know in Montreal that when I've asked about that whole thing.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the opposite. So we're talking about Showalter here, and it's funny how he kind of plays a role in both of these situations, where he was the Yankees manager on this roller coaster ride that was supposed to end with the Yankees and Montreal Expos World Series. That really, that run, and even just to make the playoffs, would have invigorated baseball in Montreal so much that it reminds me of what actually happened to the Seattle Mariners in 1995, where the Mariners had that great first round series against Buck Showalter's New York Yankees, and ended up knocking them off in 5. As we all remember, that terrific Edgar Martinez hit down the line where Ken Griffey Jr. streaked around the bases and scored from first base to end that series. One of the most fantastic finishes you'll see to a playoff series, and one of the more fun playoff series I've ever seen. And they say that is the series that saved baseball in Seattle. Not only do they have two of the biggest stars in the game at that point with Randy Johnson and Ken Griffey Jr., but to win that series and to beat the Yankees, you got to remember too, that was the first time the Yankees had made the playoffs since 1981. And that was the first time the Seattle Mariners had ever made the playoffs. So really big implications on both sides. And it meant so much for the Mariners to win that series, right, Dan?
Exactly. It wound up. It even got to the point where they built they opened up a new stadium. I think it was 1999. I think.
Yeah, they opened Safeco Field right around then. I'm pretty sure it was 99. I think you're right. I think it was even mid-season.
Mid-season. That was unheard of when I realized that they opened their ballpark mid-season. Yeah. And of course nowadays park.
Yes, and Safeco Field is a really nice.
Then,
what's that?
Yep. I probably do want to make the trip there if I see next year's schedule. If the Mets are going to Seattle. I've been meaning to visit some people out there in that area. So I feel like I might have to make that trip next year if I see on the schedule that the Mets are going to Seattle.
Well, it's a possibility actually, because next year is supposed to be the balanced schedule where the Major League Baseball schedule will become more like the NBA and the NHL, where you'll play each team at least one time. So I'm very interested to see how they do that. Are they going to give you a home series and an away series against each team? Or is it going to be more like, sometimes you'll get home, sometimes you'll get away?
That's what I hear. It's going to probably be more like there'll be one series against each American League team. Even though I'm sure it'll be the rivalry, there'll be two series. Like there'll be the home and home with the Mets and the Yankees will probably still happen because I'm sure the commissioner and like a lot of people realize how big of a moneymaker those series like that are.
Yeah.
Market probably, I don't know how much of a degree it is in Chicago, but I'm sure it's a big revenue generator in Chicago. But I know that for sure, we know for sure that Subway Series is a big revenue generator because I see that those are days I always know for sure the stadiums are packed, and I know the bathroom lines are going to be long, and I know the concession lines are going to be long.
No doubt about it, man. And that is why actually they started putting these games in the middle of the week, because the Mets and the Yankees would typically play over the summer, over the weekend. And most teams, especially the Mets and the Yankees, even if your team's crappy, mostly in the Mets case, thankfully not this year, but even when the team is crappy, you usually don't have trouble selling out or at least having really good crowds on the weekends over the summer. But that's why they stick these games in the middle of the week now, so they can get a couple of sellouts during the week too. I really wish, to be honest, that they would just go back to having these weekend series. I don't like having the 2 games here and 2 games there against the Yankees. I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah, exactly. I was liking it last year when it worked out, because I know sometimes now it's some years that it's a weekend thing. So last year I like that it was a weekend thing last year, but I noticed during the weekday ones it still kind of affected the crowds a little bit, because I noticed specifically the difference when I attended one of the Subway Series games. I think it was in Yankee Stadium. I knew it was obvious the fact that it was on a weekday affected the crowds, because they said it usually gets more crowds for this during a Subway Series game.
Yeah.
If this was a weekend, the stadium would have been packed, and I think I would have been paying a lot more for that ticket than I did. Somehow what I paid that year, $36.
What's that, then? You were kind of breaking up a little bit.
Said I figured it was obvious that the crowd was. mean, the fact that it was on a weekday, I think affected that day. That it was because it was on a weekday. I mean, even to the point that ticket I had paid was $36.
Wow.
Sitting in the upper deck at Yankee Stadium 2, I refer to that one as.
Yeah, it's true. Yankee Stadium 2. It's or new Yankee Stadium. Yeah, I do have to say that the games during the week, they probably don't draw as well as the weekend games do. I mean, for a lot of reasons. But one thing I will say is that it looks like I'm sorry. One thing I will say is that they definitely draw higher. A Met Yankee game might draw 36,000 during the week as opposed to 40 plus over the weekend, but it's still going to draw higher than a Met Brewer game or a Yankee Royal game or something like that.
Oh, I'm sure I'll be expecting a crowd at both stadiums because I'm leaning toward attending one of the Subway Series games, and I'm probably eyeing potentially doing a home and home thing this year.
Oh, that's cool.
And by the way, if I am buying tickets to one of the games, Dave, let me know if you want to go because I'll get you a ticket if you want to go.
There you go. The shout out to the Great East Side Dave.
Hopefully, let me know in a timely manner because I can't wait too long when it comes time for me to buy. That I've decided I'm definitely buying a ticket because you don't know how often you could get the ticket at that price. So you can let me know in a timely manner when I say once I've said I'm buying a ticket. I'll make sure you get a ticket.
Very true, very true. And so we spent a lot of time talking about the Yankees and Buck Showalter's time with the Yankees and everything. But as we're starting to round down here a little bit, I want to finish up here talking a little Yankees right now, as they play their last game against the Rays tonight, and then they're going in to play the Astros for 4. So the Astros just swept the Mets. Then they're taking on the Yankees for 4 over the weekend, and then they're coming to Citi Field next week. So they're going to have a lot of New York over the next week. But the Yankees, just to finish up with Tampa Bay before they start up with that, they got Jordan Montgomery on the mound tonight. Really, really just a crazy run for the Yankees. I mean, Dan, how do you put it into words? Right now, the Yankees have played 68 games, and they've won 50 of them. 50. They're 50 and 18. Isn't that just crazy?
Crazy. They look like they're going to be a shoo-in for the playoffs. Of course, once they're in the playoffs, that's going to be a whole different story. I mean, they'll probably be facing a tough pitching because Houston, I think, with their top 2 starters, that would be a very close matchup.
Oh, no doubt about it. Especially, Verlander always has it out for the Yankees.
Exactly, and I even feel if it even got to a Subway Series this year, I feel that one could be a close series if all goes as what we expect. It could be a close one.
No doubt about it. I mean, just think about the implications. And this is probably barring if the Yankees are smart, and I know Brian Cashman is. He's been one of my favorite GMs for years, and a guy that I've constantly said is one of the best, if not the best, GMs in baseball. But
I found a lot longer than you would expect in a team that has a high expectations.
Especially, isn't it crazy to think that there could be a guy in the Yankees who was hired by George Steinbrenner, who hung around for 20-something years, 22 years now? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's shocking. That's shocking that a guy who could hang around with George George Costanza's former boss. A year.
Yeah, and I mean, you heard the list of guys that Steinbrenner's fired before. You remember that famous scene from Seinfeld when he's saying Billy Martin, Stump Merrill, Billy Martin, and he just says Billy Martin about 10 times. But maybe we'll have to stick the a little clip of that in this episode too. By the way,
George, as painful as it is, I've had to let a few people go over the years. Yogi Berra, Lou Piniella, Bucky Dent, Billy Martin, Dallas Green, Dick Hauser, Bill Verdon, Billy Martin, Stump Merrill, Billy Martin, Bob Lemon, Billy Martin, Gene Michael, Buck Showalter. George, you didn't hear that from me. George?
But it's crazy to think the longevity that Brian Cashman has had. This is a guy whose first year, which is okay, he took over Gene Michael's team in 1998 and had a 114 win world championship season in his rookie year as GM, and then won in 98, 99, and 2000 for three-peat, got to that fourth straight World Series, losing to the not managed by Buck Showalter Arizona Diamondbacks. As a matter of fact, Dan, do you remember who the manager of that team was?
That was Bob Brenly.
Bob Brenly. There we go.
And I remember watching that Game 7, and I remember every Yankee fan I knew was shocked. Like, they were literally shocked. Like, they thought it was pretty much that they were going to definitely win the World Series like day one of the season, from what I gather from a lot of Yankee fans that year. And they had this shocked look on their face.
It was such a crazy. That was one of the wackiest World Series ever. I mean, if you remember, that was the World Series with Jeter becoming Mr. November, hitting the home run early in the morning on November 1st. Not to mention the Scott Brocious home run at the end of the game, Byung-Sung Kim having all those blow-ups, Mariano Rivera blowing it in Game 7. Such a crazy series, but yeah, I mean, I agree with you, though. A lot of Yankee fans, rightfully so, thought the series was over. I thought it was over when I was sitting there watching the game and Soriano hit that home run off Kurt Schilling in the 8th inning. I thought it was over. And boy, that you get that Tony Womack hit and these guys stringing hits together and Rivera throwing the ball away to second base. And then before you know it, bases loaded. And all it takes is, your best player who hit 57 home runs in the regular season to get a base hit up the middle, which, by the way, if the bases weren't loaded, Jeter isn't playing in and that ball doesn't get over his head. So the Yankees lost that series and that game by the slimmest of margins. Just crazy.
Yeah, and to plus especially you had Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling, I feel like has been very underrated and underappreciated by a lot of baseball people. Probably, I think when the Veterans Committee are up to when he's eligible for that, he should be really considered to be in a Hall of Fame. The guy pitched some great numbers during the regular season, and the guy was money in the playoffs. And the guy took teams to a championship.
Man, preach. That's all I can say, Dan. I could not agree with you more. As a matter of fact, Kurt Schilling was as money of a money pitcher as he could get. Anywhere that guy went, they became winners. A lot of people forget too, he was on that 93 Phillies team that went to the World Series, and he had a great playoff run for them. He was obviously co-World Series MVP with Randy Johnson in 2001 against the Yankees. He was the Red Sox ace in 2004, and obviously pitched that great Game 6 against the Yankees pretty much on one leg, even though a lot of people have you believe that was catch up. Dan, what do you think about that? Let's get your opinion right now. Was Game 6 with Schilling, was that catch up or was that blood?
That looked like blood. Like, I can tell you how it looked painful just watching that game. Every time they kept showing a shot, it just felt painful. And I got to give a lot of props to that guy that he felt like he badly wanted to get that championship. Like, I feel like that 2004 championship must have really meant the most out of all the championships Kurt Schilling won. That because just the fact the momentum, how momentous it was. I mean, you had a team that was probably on an insanely long championship drought, and the guy played through a lot of pain to play his part in getting that championship that Red Sox fans will be talking about. Every Red Sox fan alive today that remembers it, they're talking about it. They'll be talking about it when they're in their hundreds.
No doubt about it. If you were alive and you saw that crazy series and that playoff run for the Red Sox and that Yankees Red Sox series during that time, you're going to be talking about that. And especially if you're a Red Sox fan, you're going to be thinking about that for a long time. And, with that, Dan, I think we're just about getting done here. Right now, obviously, we're mentioning the Yankees before. The Yankees are finishing up with the Rays today. They're playing the Astros over the weekend. So things are right in front of the Yankees now. Go out, take care of the Astros, and they further cement themselves as right now the World Series frontrunners, right, Dan?
Yeah, pretty much it looks like.
Yeah, so I think that's just about it too. We we didn't get to really touch on Giants and Jets minicamp. Nothing really happened. We'll be getting on to football more in a couple of weeks. But one thing I do want to plug, Dan, is that we're coming up now on we're a couple of weeks away from the All-Star game. So I think we got to bring in a great idea that you had mentioned a couple of months ago with your All-Star mug shots, right?
This is going to be a bit we're going to do that. And feel free, all of you on Twitter and social media, to help us with this one. We're debating the greatest players that have had at least one mug shot during any point in their life. It could have been during their playing career, could have been after, or it could have been very, very severity of the crime they committed. But whatever they did get to it was at the point where they ended up getting a mug shot. And we're going to debate the greatest players at each position that had at least one mug shot in their life, whatever the crime it is they committed.
Very true, man. And that is going to be a very fun segment. As you know, there's been a lot of baseball players that have done a lot of dumb things over the years. So it's going to be pretty funny, getting all these pictures together and figuring all this stuff out.
Going to be a lot of Googling on the internet to find these players' mugshots. Also, if anybody who maybe potentially can have any leads to where we could find an image of the mugshot from any of these players, please feel free to share with us.
Absolutely. Feel free, tweet it at us. Obviously, the show Twitter is at bsith_podcast. You could also tweet me at Cramer New York. And Dan, give a couple of your plugs too.
Sure, you can find me on Twitter at Bobo103NYC. You can also find me at Bobo718DK on Instagram and Daniel Kurlan on YouTube.
Definitely subscribe to Daniel Kurlan on YouTube and follow and check all his stuff out. Definitely, thanks to everybody for checking this out today. We got a lot of fun ahead of us right now. We got two great baseball teams. And that's pretty much the only thing we got going for the next few weeks up until we have football training camp starting in about a month, which is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of great stuff with that as well. We got the All-Star mugshots to look forward to. So don't forget to check it out. And hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be having a guest and we'll announce that as needed. So thanks again, everybody, for tuning in to the podcast. I'm Rob Cramer, along with my co-host Daniel Bobo Kurlan. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great weekend for the Best Seat in the House podcast.